Some days life feels perfect.
And that was Toby Mac, Speak Life, here on See the Glory. You're listening to Remnant Radio 100.1. My name's Zach Seals. Thanks for tuning in again. Thanks for being with me. I don't know if you've been sticking around for this show. I start at 9 o'clock and I go till 12. And the theme today is on James, and specifically wisdom in the book of James. How can we live in light of that transformational call of the gospel to be like Christ? What does it mean to be wise? And James shows us in specific ways that amplify the way Jesus taught in his own sermons, drawing on the book of Proverbs, drawing from different wisdom traditions, and saying, this is what it means to be perfect, or to strive after perfection. And that is to be whole, complete, to match your words with your actions, with what's inside your loves, with how that's manifested. And we've talked about how that looks with caring for the poor and the oppressed, with having faith and assurance, steadfastness in trials and difficulties. We also see here, and the reason I played that song, Speak Life, is because our words, our tongues, and how we speak is incredibly important to our actions. There will be those that say they knew God and say they spoke what he told them to speak, but didn't live that way. But the truth is, our words are actions as well. And by our words, we do certain things. For example, the same tongue that speaks praise to God and praise and asks God for things and expresses gratitude to him is the tongue that often unleashes pain on our neighbors, unleashes pain against our brothers. It's a dangerous but powerful thing. In James chapter 3, it says, "Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. For we all stumble in many ways, and if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body." But here is where we find, in verse 5, "So also the tongue is a member, and it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire, and the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind, but no human being can tame the tongue." Such power given to the tongue. Why is that? Well, the tongue is the mode or the instrument by which what is inside our hearts is revealed. And it speaks and it shapes reality in many ways. Now, not in the ultimate way. We're not God who can speak things into existence from nothing. We're not anywhere near that kind of power. But think of what Adam was given the task to do in the garden. He was told to go out and to name the beasts of the field, the sea creatures in the water, the birds of the air. The very first task he's given to care for the garden, and the way we see that described, is he names things. He uses his tongue. He speaks order and structure into nature by ascribing a certain meaning, intelligibility to things. He names things. And so too here we find that the tongue can be used not just to positively name and ascribe valuable, good meaning to things. It can be used to curse. It can be used to tear down and destroy and to attack people. And oftentimes in defense of ourselves, other times just to be cruel. And I think James actually has Adam and Eve in mind. He has that original creation lens in mind, because he says mankind has tamed the birds and the reptiles and the sea creatures. And that's what we were originally created to do. But we haven't tamed our own tongues. We don't have that kind of self-control often. With that tongue, and here's where I think it's clear that we have Adam and Eve in mind, verse 9 of chapter 3, "With that tongue we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God." That's exactly what it says in Genesis 1. Mankind was made in the image and likeness of God. And we curse those people. The same tongue that blesses God curses those people. What a tragic paradox, but reality of life. And the example he gives presses home the point even farther, because he says, from the same mouth comes blessing and cursing. My brothers, these things ought not to be so. And then he uses an example from nature. In nature, like produces like. Kind produces kind. A chicken gives birth to a chicken. An apple tree grows apples. But unfortunately, in our own lives, in human life, it's not always like that. He uses these natural examples. He says, does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Of course not. Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can a salt pond yield fresh water. Why then, you who are made in the likeness and image of God, created with a tongue made to praise and be grateful to God, why do you curse people? Well, because they wronged me. Okay, of course they wronged you. How many people wronged Jesus? How many people cursed Jesus? He didn't curse them back. He blessed them. How many times can we be wronged by people and fight back and curse back before we realize we're setting a fire that is burning relationships? Maybe you know what it's like to say words that you wish you could take back immediately, to have relationships hurt and strained because of words that have been said. The tongue is a fire that can tear things down. It's a restless evil full of deadly poison, oftentimes a poison that you only feel the full sting of later on. Now, there can be healing, there can be forgiveness, there can be reconciliation, absolutely. Replace those terrible words with positive words. Speak life, as the song I just played said. And realize how powerful those words are. The wise person knows the power of their words and the tongue that they use. We find the same theme of our words in James chapter 4 later on in the book. In verse 11 it says, do not speak evil against one another, brothers. The one who speaks against a brother or judges his brother speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. And there's only one lawgiver and judge, he who is able to save and to destroy. Who are you to judge your neighbor? Don't make yourself God. Don't make yourself the ruler and determiner of what is right by thinking you have a right to say evil things about your brother, evil things about your neighbor who you are called to love and to wish and hope the best for, even those that wrong you. And if you do judge your brother and speak evil against them, because you only know the outside, you don't know their heart, you don't know their history, you don't know the greater picture. So you have to have a wisdom to recognize you have limited information, and you are going to seek their best and seek to speak positively about them to others. Don't make yourself a judge of the law that is very clear not to speak a false witness against a brother or a sister, not to speak a lie or deceitful thing that makes yourself look better and put someone else down in that situation. Because there is only one lawgiver, and that is God. And he can not only save you, but he can destroy you, because he is a good and righteous God. And finally, in James, we find this theme of words in chapter 5, where it says in verse 12, but above all, my brothers, do not swear, either by heaven or by earth or by any oath, but let your yes be yes and your no be no, so that you may not fall under condemnation. All of our words will be judged at the end of our lives. It says in Matthew 12, I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word they speak. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. So speak in a way that shows and is backed up by your life and your actions. Don't haphazardly or half-heartedly make promises or commitments. A pastor of mine when I was in Scotland said one of the things he was always frustrated about, particularly with my generation of young adults, was that we would have no commitment to things. We wouldn't say, oh yes, I'll be there. I'll go to that thing, and then show up. It's so easy to either not respond because you don't want to commit, or say, yeah, I'll be there, and then just flake and back out. I think it's one of the most common and dangerously socially acceptable ways we don't match up our actions with our words. And if that, simple little things like that, can undermine our testimony and our character, then how is that not shown or extended to greater things where you really need to depend on someone for more serious things? If you can't be trusted with your words to match your actions in little things, then you can't be trusted for your words to match your actions in greater, bigger things. So let your yes be yes and your no be no. That's not saying you can never make a promise or you can never make a special, unique kind of oath or commitment. Paul does that in his letters. He constantly says, with God as my witness, I proclaim this to you. That's a kind of oath. What he's saying in James is generally, as a wisdom literature, proverbially, the broad contour of your life is to be one where your words are backed up by their actions and people can count on you because you're not going to say one thing and mean another. That's what James has to say about our words and how we can live wisely. So thank you for listening in.